Have you ever heard the rumor that dialing 999 can magically charge your phone's battery? Yes, you heard it right. There's a myth floating around that if your phone battery is dying, all you need to do is call the emergency services number, then promptly hang up, and voila, your battery will be charged. This urban legend has been circulating for quite some time, spreading its roots in popular culture, making people wonder about its authenticity. It's a curious tale, and one can't help but wonder where it originated. Could it be a misunderstanding of how emergency calls work? Or perhaps it's just a prank that spiraled out of control? Regardless of where it came from, this myth has certainly piqued the interest of many. But before you give it a try, hang on. Now, let's dive into the scientific and technical aspects of this myth to understand why it's simply not possible. To debunk this myth, we first need to understand how phone batteries work and how they get charged. Our phones are powered by rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. These batteries are made of two electrodes, an anode and a cathode, with an electrolyte in between. When your phone is in use, lithium ions move from the anode to the cathode through the electrolyte, creating a flow of electrical current that powers your device. Now, when you plug your phone into a charger, the process is reversed. The external power source pushes the lithium ions back to the anode, storing energy in the battery for later use. This is the charging process in a nutshell. The charging port on your phone is the gateway for this energy transfer. It's specifically designed to handle the flow of electric current from your charger to your phone's battery. The charger, on the other hand, acts as a bridge between the power source, like a wall socket, and your phone. It converts the higher voltage from the power source to a lower voltage that your phone's battery can safely handle. Now let's talk about electricity. You see, electricity, in the context of charging your phone, is essentially the flow of electric charge, which is carried by electrons. When you plug your phone into a charger, these electrons move from the power source through the charger into your phone's battery, causing it to charge. This is why you can't charge your phone by making a call. A phone call simply doesn't provide the electric charge needed to push lithium ions back to the anode. It's a completely different process that involves converting your voice into electronic signals that can be transmitted over a network. As you can see, charging a phone battery requires a specific process and a power source, which a phone call can't provide. Now, let's examine what really happens when you dial an emergency number like 999. Firstly, when you punch in those 3 digits, your phone doesn't know if it's a real emergency or not. It immediately sends out a signal to the nearest cell tower, which then forwards it to a public safety answering point, also known as a PSAP. The PSAP is a call center responsible for handling emergency calls, and it's staffed with trained dispatchers who are ready to respond to any crisis. Here's where things get interesting. Even if you hang up right after dialing, the call has already been registered at the PSAP. The system is designed this way to ensure that people who are in danger and unable to speak or stay on the line can still get help. So when a call comes in and then disconnects, it's flagged as a potential emergency. In many cases, the dispatcher will attempt to call back, and if they can't reach you, they might even send emergency services to your location if it can be determined. Now you might be wondering what all this has to do with charging your phone. And the answer is absolutely nothing. The process of making an emergency call uses energy. It doesn't create it. In fact, it drains your battery slightly because the phone has to send out a strong signal to reach the nearest cell tower quickly. Furthermore, the emergency call system and the system that charges your phone are 2 completely separate entities. They don't interact with each other at all. When you plug your phone into a power source, it's the battery that's interacting with the charger, not the phone's calling function. So, while making an emergency call might give you a jolt of adrenaline, it certainly won't give your phone a jolt of power. It's a complex, finely tuned system designed to save lives, not to keep your phone battery topped up. Clearly, making an emergency call involves a completely different system, one that has nothing to do with charging your phone. Believing in the 999 charging myth isn't just scientifically incorrect, it's also potentially dangerous. Now let's delve into why this myth can be more than just a trivial misunderstanding. The misuse of emergency services numbers is a serious issue. When someone calls 999, or any emergency number for that matter, they're tapping into a vital resource intended for urgent situations where lives could be at stake. Every call made to these numbers requires immediate attention, as operators cannot predict the severity of the situation on the other end of the line. Now, if individuals are dialing 999 in the hopes of giving their phone battery a quick boost, they're diverting valuable attention away from genuine emergencies. Each unnecessary call could potentially delay the response time for someone in a life or death situation. It's a game of chance that we as a society cannot afford to play. But it doesn't stop there. Misusing emergency numbers isn't just ethically questionable, it's also legally dubious. In many jurisdictions, making prank or non-emergency calls to these numbers is considered a criminal offense. Penalties can range from fines to imprisonment, depending on the severity of the misuse and the laws of the land. Moreover, consider the strain on the infrastructure and personnel of these emergency services. They're working round the clock, dealing with high-stress situations, and making split-second decisions that could mean the difference between life and death. Any distraction or unnecessary call adds to their already heavy workload. Finally, let's not forget the potential personal consequences. Imagine finding yourself in a real emergency, only to discover that your phone battery is dead because you believed in a myth. It's a risk that's simply not worth taking. In conclusion, the 999 charging myth is a far cry from harmless fun. It's a misconception that can lead to real-world consequences, putting unnecessary strain on vital services and potentially endangering lives. The 999 charging myth is not only implausible, but can also lead to serious repercussions. By now, it should be clear that the 999 charging myth is just that, a myth. We've walked through the science behind phone charging, the reality of emergency calls, and the risks associated with believing and spreading this particular piece of misinformation. So let's recap. Firstly, the idea that dialing an emergency number would somehow initiate a charging process in your phone is scientifically implausible. Charging a phone, like any other electronic device, requires a power source. A phone call, whether to an emergency number or otherwise, does not provide this power. Instead, it actually uses up power from your phone's battery to maintain the call. Secondly, there's the practical side of things. Emergency numbers are designed to be used in situations of immediate danger or distress. They are not, and never have been, intended to serve any other purpose. Misusing these numbers can clog up the lines, potentially preventing genuine emergency calls from getting through. This could have serious, even life-threatening consequences. Finally, let's consider the risks associated with spreading such a myth. Misinformation can be harmful, and in this case, it could lead people to misuse emergency services, or worse, to find themselves in a situation where their phone battery is depleted because they believed it could be charged by making a call. The 999 charging myth is a perfect example of why we should always question and fact-check information before sharing it. It underlines the importance of understanding the basic principles of how our devices work and how misuse of essential services can have real-world implications. So next time you hear someone mention the 999 charging myth, you'll know exactly why it's nothing more than an urban legend. In conclusion, the 999 charging myth is a classic example of misinformation that can have real-world consequences. We've explored the science behind phone charging, and we've established that making an emergency call has no bearing on your phone's battery life. It's a myth, plain and simple. We've also looked at the reality of emergency calls, revealing that dialing and hanging up can actually trigger unnecessary responses from emergency services. This not only wastes valuable resources, but also poses potential risks to those who may genuinely need assistance. Through this journey, we've debunked the 999 charging myth and highlighted the importance of understanding how our technology works. Misinformation can spread quickly, especially when it comes to technology. But with a little bit of knowledge and skepticism, we can prevent these myths from taking root. Remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about our devices and the systems we use, the better we can use them responsibly and effectively.